The night Brian Shaffer vanished, the city of Columbus was alive with the promise of a new year. Ohio State University, a sprawling hub of youthful energy, pulsed with celebrations. But for Brian, a promising medical student, January 1st, 2006 would not be a new beginning. It would be the day he stepped into an enigma, a real-life vanishing act that continues to haunt America. Imagine this. A bustling bar, doors packed with revelers, security cameras meticulously recording every entry. Brian Shaffer walks in, a smile on his face, ready to ring in the new year with friends. He's seen, he's acknowledged, he's on tape. But then, as the clock ticks past midnight and the first light of dawn begins to paint the sky, Brian is nowhere to be found. The same cameras that captured his arrival show no trace of his departure. No drunken stumble, no hurried exit, no last wave goodbye. He simply ceased to be. This isn't a plot from a Hollywood thriller. It's the chilling reality of a case that has baffled seasoned detectives, torn apart a family, and captivated true crime enthusiasts for nearly 2 decades. Brian Randall Shaffer was born on February 25, 1979, in Pickerington, Ohio. He was the elder of 2 sons born to Randy and Renee Shaffer. From an early age, Brian exhibited a bright, inquisitive mind and a gentle spirit. He excelled in academics and developed a passion for medicine, a path that seemed destined to lead him to a fulfilling career. He graduated from Otterbein College with a degree in microbiology and was in his 2nd year at the Ohio State University College of Medicine when he disappeared. By all accounts, Brian was a responsible, well-liked individual. He had a girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner, whom he adored, and a close relationship with his family. His life was on an upward trajectory, filled with plans for the future. He had no history of mental health issues, no known enemies, and no apparent reason to simply walk away from his life. The evening of December 31st, 2005 started like many other New Year's Eves for a college student. Brian met up with his father, Randy, for a celebratory dinner earlier in the evening. Randy noted that Brian seemed in good spirits, excited about the upcoming festivities. Later, Brian went to the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a bar located on the 2nd floor of the South Campus Gateway Complex on North High Street in Columbus, near the Ohio State campus. He was joined by his friend, Clint Florence. The two had plans to bar hop to ring in the new year. The Ugly Tuna Saloon was a popular spot, known for its lively atmosphere and often crowded conditions. Security footage from the building's ground floor entrance shows Brian entering the bar with Florence around 9:30 p.m. This is the last confirmed sighting of Brian entering any establishment. Inside the Ugly Tuna Saloon, Brian and Clint spent the next few hours drinking and socializing. At some point, Brian called Alexis, who was out of town visiting her family, to wish her a Happy New Year. This call, placed around 1:30 a.m. on January 1st, was the last time Alexis would speak to him. She later recalled that he sounded happy and normal. Around 1:15 a.m., Florence and Reed met Meredith Reed, a friend of Florence's. The 3 continued to drink and celebrate. The bar was packed and the atmosphere was chaotic, typical for New Year's Eve. The critical moment occurred sometime between 1:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. Florence and Reed reportedly decided to leave the Ugly Tuna Saloon for a brief period, perhaps to visit another bar or simply step outside for some air. They expected Brian to either come with them or wait for them to return. When they came back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon, they couldn't find Brian. They tried calling his cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Assuming Brian had simply left and gone home, or perhaps to another bar, they eventually gave up searching and went home themselves. This assumption, seemingly innocent at the time, would quickly unravel into a terrifying realization. The bar officially closed at 2 p.m. At this point, the Ugly Tuna Saloon, like all establishments in the South Campus Gateway complex, was equipped with numerous security cameras. These cameras covered all entrances and exits to the building. The main entrance to the Ugly Tuna Saloon was accessible via an escalator and a staircase. There was also a service exit not generally used by patrons, but accessible to employees and potentially to anyone who knew about it. Police meticulously reviewed every minute of security footage from the Ugly Tuna Saloon and the South Campus Gateway complex for the entire night. They watched as patrons entered and exited, as staff members came and went. They saw Brian enter around 9:30 p.m. They saw Florence and Reed exit and re-enter. They saw the last patrons leave after closing. But Brian Shaffer was not seen on any of the tapes leaving the building. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. This is the core of the mystery, and what makes Brian Shaffer's disappearance so utterly baffling. How does a person simply disappear from a building that is under constant surveillance, with only a few ways in and out? The initial assumption by Brian's family and friends was that he was simply taking a New Year's vacation, perhaps needing a break from the stresses of medical school. However, when he failed to show up for a flight to Miami with Alexis on January 3rd, alarm bells began to ring. Alexis immediately contacted Brian's father, Randy. Randy, too, initially thought Brian might just be letting off steam, but the missed flight was out of character. He promptly filed a missing person report with the Columbus Police Department. The police investigation began with a thorough search of the Ugly Tuna Saloon and the surrounding South Campus Gateway complex. Every nook and cranny was scoured, dumpsters were checked, nearby construction sites were examined. Nothing. No discarded clothing, no wallet, no cell phone. It was as if Brian had been airlifted out of the building. Detectives interviewed everyone who had seen Brian that night: Clint Florence, Meredith Reed, other friends, bar staff, and patrons. Florence and Reed cooperated with the police, providing their accounts of the evening. They maintained that they had last seen Brian inside the bar. One of the most perplexing aspects of the investigation was the lack of any digital footprint. Brian's cell phone was either turned off or had run out of battery, as all calls went straight to voicemail. There was no activity on his bank accounts or credit cards. His car was still parked in his apartment complex's lot. His apartment was undisturbed. It was as if his entire existence had been wiped clean, leaving no trace. The police also brought in scent tracking dogs. These dogs are trained to follow a person's unique scent. The dogs tracked Brian's scent from his apartment all the way to the entrance of the Ugly Tuna Saloon, and then at the bar's exit, the scent trail abruptly stopped. It was as if he had walked to the door and then simply ceased to exist, unable to be picked up beyond that point. This further reinforced the belief that Brian had not left the building through any conventional means. Several theories emerged to explain Brian's impossible disappearance. Theory 1. He left through an unseen exit. The South Campus Gateway complex is a multi-use building. While the main entrance to the Ugly Tuna Saloon was well covered by cameras, there was a service exit that led to a construction area. This exit was not typically used by patrons and may not have been as heavily monitored by cameras, or perhaps the footage was not as clear. It's possible Brian, perhaps intoxicated, slipped out through this exit, intending to meet his friends later, and then something happened to him outside. However, if he left this way, he still would have had to navigate a construction zone, and his scent trail would likely have been picked up beyond the bar's immediate vicinity. Furthermore, if he simply walked away, why no communication, no bank activity, no sighting? Theory 2. He never left the building. This is the most disturbing theory. If Brian didn't leave through any known exit, then he must still be within the confines of the South Campus Gateway complex, or was removed from it in a way that left no trace. This theory suggests foul play. Could he have been murdered inside the bar and his body disposed of in a way that bypassed all security and left no forensic evidence? The building has numerous utility tunnels, service areas, and even a large boiler room.
Could he have fallen into a hidden area or been hidden there? Police searched these areas extensively, but found nothing. The idea that a body could remain undiscovered in a building that has been so thoroughly searched is chilling. Theory 3. He staged his own disappearance. While Brian had no apparent reason to disappear, some speculate that he might have wanted to escape his life, perhaps due to the pressure of medical school or an undisclosed personal issue. However, this theory is undermined by several factors. Brian was very close to his family and Alexis, and it seems highly unlikely he would subject them to such anguish. He also left behind all his possessions, his car, and his entire future. Furthermore, staging a disappearance of this magnitude without leaving any trace whatsoever would require an extraordinary level of planning and execution, which seems out of character for Brian. If he had staged it, why no communication with anyone, even years later? Theory 4. An accident or misadventure. Could Brian, disoriented by alcohol, have wandered into a dangerous area of the building, perhaps a construction zone or an unsecured utility shaft, and suffered an accident? This is certainly plausible, but again, the extensive searches yielded no results. The idea of a body simply vanishing without a trace within a building is difficult to reconcile with the thoroughness of the police investigation. Theory 5. He met with someone and willingly left. Could Brian have encountered someone inside the bar whom he knew, or even a stranger, and left with them voluntarily? If this person had a car or otherwise facilitated his departure from the immediate vicinity, it could explain why he wasn't seen on camera leaving the building's main entrances. However, this still doesn't explain the complete lack of contact afterward. If he left with someone he knew, why wouldn't that person come forward? If it was a stranger, why would they facilitate his disappearance without any trace? Over the years, the case has remained cold but not forgotten. Brian's father, Randy Shaffer, dedicated the rest of his life to finding his son. He held press conferences, organized search parties, and constantly pleaded for information. The anguish of not knowing what happened to Brian took a tremendous toll on Randy. In 2008, Brian's mother, Renee, tragically passed away from an accident exacerbated by the stress and heartbreak of her son's disappearance. In 2008, a devastating blow struck the family again. Randy Shaffer, while on vacation, was killed in a falling tree accident. The man who had tirelessly searched for his son was gone, leaving the mystery of Brian's disappearance more poignant than ever. Before his death, Randy had provided DNA samples to be used if Brian's remains were ever found. The case has been featured on numerous true crime shows and podcasts, generating renewed interest and countless theories from the public. There have been several alleged sightings of Brian over the years, but none have ever been substantiated. In 2011, a photo circulated online of a man who bore a striking resemblance to Brian living as a homeless person in Sweden. The Columbus police investigated, but it was determined not to be Brian. One of the most frustrating aspects for investigators is the lack of a smoking gun, any piece of evidence that could definitively point to a theory. There's no blood, no struggle, no ransom note, no body, just an absence. The authorities have stated that the case remains open and active. They continue to follow up on any new leads or information that comes to light. The passage of time makes a resolution more challenging as memories fade and potential witnesses become harder to locate. However, the hope remains that one day Brian Shaffer's fate will be known. The Brian Shaffer case is a stark reminder of how quickly and inexplicably a life can vanish. It challenges our understanding of security, surveillance, and the seemingly impossible. How can someone simply disappear from a place teeming with people and cameras, leaving behind no physical or digital trace? The answer remains elusive, a ghost haunting the streets of Columbus, Ohio. As the years turn into decades, the question persists. What happened to Brian Shaffer? Did he walk out unseen into the night only to meet an unknown fate? Did he succumb to an accident within the walls of the Ugly Tuna Saloon? Or was something far more sinister at play, a meticulously executed disappearance that defied all odds? The truth, for now, remains hidden in the shadows of that New Year's morning, a chilling American mystery that still has no answers. If you're captivated by cases like Brian's and want to explore more real American mysteries that still have no answers, be sure to subscribe to American Mystery Vault for our full video history and exclusive content.